Welcome to session 1 of CE 120B 220B in winter quarter 2016. I am very pleased to have so many of my good friends back. So yeah, I think we're going to have some fun in this class. This is actually a class that really was designed to allow you to extend your kind of love or interest in BIM modeling to a whole new level. You know, the idea was that really in the introductory BIM class, we can only go so far in a very short period of time, and you really learn to do all sorts of stuff about just creating different types of elements and barely getting models to hang together. You put it all together, but there's really not enough time to dig into it in much depth. And I always had the sense at the end of 128 and 228 that there was so much more that would be really good to talk about that you never get a chance to in that very short period of time. So we created this class to give people an opportunity to not only sort of explore buildings in more depth, to really think about not only kind of the bare essentials of the architectural elements and how they fit together, but start thinking about all these incredibly kind of interesting and complex systems that make up a building. Think about how they're all individually designed and how they're all layered together to really make a complete composition. So we really put this class together as a way to sort of not only sort of increase the depth, give you a little background about how those systems are designed, really teach you a principle called performance-based design, where at every step of the way we're trying to design a system to meet certain targets. And we can get feedback about how well we're doing, adjust our design, and keep on trying to improve relative to those targets. But also the whole notion of how these things integrate together, because it really turns out to be sort of complex about how all the different little pieces fit together. It really, most buildings really are a finely tuned puzzle where all the pieces are really fighting for space, and at first you may not understand why things are in specific locations, but when you start discovering the depth and what all the dependencies are, you find out that it's incredibly finely tuned if it's done well. There's a lot of buildings where it isn't done so well, and things are just kind of hanging out there. But hopefully we'll teach you all about how to think about and add those things in together and give you a chance to exercise all that. So I'm going to start by talking about the why behind the class and kind of what I mean by integrated building systems and the big issues we're going to focus on. Then I'll talk about the class structure, because different of us are taking it for different levels of units and things like that. I'll explain how it's all organized. And yeah, we'll work through some of that. I'm Glenn Katz, who most of you know because we've been working together in some of the past classes. I am joined in this endeavor by Alana Dedek, who is going to be guiding us through at every step of the way, sharing her wisdom and inspiration. So she suffered through and survived last year and did a fantastic job. So I'm very happy to have her on board, helping to guide us. So it's always kind of a big team effort. I think especially because we're going to be a small class this quarter. Even more than ever, I always say that we're very informal, and I think of us all as colleagues, and it's really just a big working team. Yeah, it'll really be that way this time. If it's really just us, we'll be sort of in each other's models, in each other's designs, and just working together. This is really like one of those no-fail situations. Everything's fair game. Get it up on the table, ask questions, interact with each other and stuff like that, because we'll all learn more from each other's designs and what we're trying to accomplish than I could possibly deliver kind of from one viewpoint, because I'm only a single viewpoint. And we'll get to that when we start talking about class structure. You're all going to be working on your own projects, and carrying them through the whole life of the design cycle and stuff like that, which is actually kind of fun. Now I know you have taken Global AEC, so you've had a little bit of that experience before. Yeah, no worries. In many ways, this class, just to comment, to kind of put it in perspective for you, was designed to sort of complement Global AEC, where in the Global AEC class, which is a very fantastic class, Renata leads with teams of students working together from all over the world on different sort of building projects, a university kind of classroom and kind of engineering building, something like that. The idea was you're so busy just trying to get all the systems designed and coordinated. It was very hard for anyone to get into the depth of how the individual systems are designed. People kind of had to do that on their own. So in this class, we actually try to go behind the scenes and actually teach a little about how all that stuff works. Okay, but I think it'll be very complimentary. Because you'll sort of, in that class, you wear one hat. In this class, you'll ultimately end up wearing all the hats at one point or another. Okay, let's start with the why stuff in terms of what's going on. Because at a high level, yeah, what I want you to be thinking about is just really buildings as holistic systems, as systems that combine, or really, it's a series of different systems that all work together to ultimately create a holistic organism, okay? And if you can sort of think of buildings almost as being living organisms, we can really start thinking about all the different systems that are in the building and the functions they're performing, and almost, do an analogy to the human body. It's actually, there are huge analogies to that, and it's actually very productive to think about that. One of my ways of thinking about all this is I like to think about buildings as being very dynamic and hopefully responsive to the local context, to how they're being used right now, to the climate conditions. That really, if I think of buildings more as living organisms as opposed to static organisms, I think we can do a better job of designing them, because you can kind of really adapt and respond to sort of what's going on in them. And really one of the best examples that we have of that as a responsive system that you all know very well is yourself. We're actually incredible as organisms go. So I kind of like to draw this analogy out at the front just a little bit. At some level, we're going to talk about a lot of different systems, and this is some interesting categories of systems that we typically use to sort of subdivide, buildings as we start thinking about there being structural systems, circulation systems, enclosure. We have the architectural functionality we're trying to deliver, the user functionality, but we also think about them as just a series of different systems that all have to work together. And I think it's actually sort of appropriate, at this point, to actually sort of say, really what the mapping is, if we really kind of start thinking about how they all work together. So for example, how about Miss Marvelise, can I get you to come up front? We're going to design you. Okay, so you stand here with me, that's fine. Thank you. I just pick on people randomly. Everyone gets picked on someone. Okay, so here we have this fantastic organism here. It's actually incredibly designed. There's very little random about all this. And we get all sorts of highfalutin discussions about intelligent design and all sorts of things like that. I'm from Kansas, which should sort of tell you I'm sort of from the dark ages. We're still kind of arguing about evolution there. But if you believe in all that, you're a highly tuned and optimized organism here. Okay, so as she is standing here in front of us, let's kind of start thinking about the various systems that are kind of working together and how they're all kind of working. We'll think about what their parallels are. Okay, so actually we're both here. We're two kind of different organisms. And it's kind of funny. We're very different, but we function in very similar ways. It's this. Like buildings. It's really sort of, but we have a lot of the same functionality, like in both cases. Okay, so underlying all this wonderfulness that you're seeing in here, there's all sorts of wonderful aesthetic things going on here. Okay, so designed to her program, it's aesthetically quite nice, but let's think about her functionally in terms of what's going on. So what's the core of all this? There's a lot of systems underneath all this aesthetic beauty. So like, what's the core of it all? What's holding it all up? Like, so just, if you're thinking about the different systems that are making us up here, like what are some of the big systems that are underneath it all? Yeah. Skeletal is like really the core of almost everything. It's amazing how influential it is because of the skeletal system. That's kind of, I'm sort of the reason I'm the size I am, and you're the reason. Yeah, the skeleton's kind of just really amazing in terms of really what the effect of it is. And I like to sort of bring that one out right up front here, because really in the scheme of things, often as we're thinking about things as designers, especially if we're coming at it from the architectural side, we'll sort of say, oh, we have our fantastic architectural design. I'll just throw it over the wall and the structural engineer will come up with something that'll make it all work. But really that is so misguided as a way to approach it. If we sort of embrace the skeleton as a thing of beauty and we really say that everything has to sort of work within that skeleton, it's really a pretty core feature. You see it in bodies that the skeleton has a very apparent impact in terms of what's going on. But really everything sort of hinges on that. So that's why we sort of start with a structural system as being the core of all this. in the scheme of things, it really sort of, it supports everything else. It's the platform. If we didn't have that as a stage, we wouldn't have anything else on top of that. Okay, beyond that, we have some other fun systems that are going on over here. Okay, so let's think about this in terms of all your different systems and stuff like that. Okay, well, we got a lot of different systems kind of hanging around in here. We got our skeleton, we have all these organs and stuff. They're all kind of doing their things. Like, what would be the analogy to the organs? What are the organs doing? Like, yeah, in our body. What are they doing? We're pumping air around. We're pumping blood around.
Circulation.
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting. In many ways, if we thought about it, the organs they're sort of like the mechanical equipment in a building, in that a lot of what they're doing is either purifying the blood or kind of translating all that air into something where we could actually use it and kind of feed other pieces. But in some ways, those organs are kind of like the mechanical system, but they're all tied up with, there's this incredible circulatory system, you're right, that sort of ties it into everything else. So if we go ahead and we say that, oh, we got all these veins and arteries and stuff like that, yeah, they're kind of like the ductwork. Just all that and the wiring that kind of ties it all together. So, yeah, that again sort of falls into that category. So it's pretty easy to sort of see where the analogy is there. Okay, we don't have much, well, we don't have much of a circulation system because often there aren't too many people moving in and out of us. We have some other systems that are doing some interesting things though. Let's think about this. Do we have a plumbing system?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have some fluid intake and, okay, got it. So we got some systems in there. Let's go ahead and say that, oh, if we want to think about solid waste, this is such a great word, elementary. I love that word. And I can't actually spell that too well. Yeah. But basically, we definitely have fluids and stuff like that coming in. Sadly, we can't just go ahead and hook ourselves up to the city water system or to the city sewer system. So, we have to do that in a more manual way as needed. Okay. But that'll be okay. We'll kind of play with that for just a second. Okay. Let's talk about your enclosure system. What is it that separates you from your inside from your outside? Yeah, the skin. And it's interesting, we all talk about building skins in the same way. And the skins, well, your skin has many different functions actually. Okay, so like, what's your skin good for?
Well, protects the interior. It separates the interior from the exterior.
I could not have said that better. That's actually one of the primary functions. It keeps your insides in and your outsides out.
Yeah.
That's good. Does it have any other functions? I'm sort of fascinated by skin. I'm kind of a big guy, so I sweat a lot. What's that all about?
Well, perspiration, releasing, liquid maintaining, temperature, by doing that.
Hey, that sounds pretty smart. I like thinking about that whole system because I think it's a great example of, hey, the body is this incredibly self-correcting system. So you can almost think of it like a passive system. It's actually pretty smart. When you need to cool down, you sweat so that you get the evaporative cooling, and it kind of takes care of you. It's nice that your body sort of responds to the environment just automatically. And that's really kind of what we hope our buildings would do too. It's always this funny sort of thing that we would build a building and lock it up and sort of pretend that we put enough air conditioning into it to just sort of completely ignore the outside conditions. Our bodies actually do a pretty good job of responding to those outside conditions. When it's cold out, you feel cold, so you bundle up. When it's hot out, yeah, actually, that's a pretty good example of just, dynamism. The fact that we can do that. If it's cold out, we put on a sweater. If it's hot out, we take it off or something like that. It's almost too bad buildings can't do that too, in terms of what's going on. Okay, you have these fantastic things up here at the top that allow you to kind of interact with the world. So let's think about what that's equivalent to. What are your eyes and your ears and all those things like in a building?
Oh, like sensors?
Yeah, it's all like just sensor systems. Yeah, they're actually really great in being able to see things, but then take in the input and then adapt based upon what you're seeing, responding to danger. Just I can look outside and tell you it's cold. We're full of sensors. That's kind of okay. Okay. We also have, how about control systems? We have things that operate like a control system. How does our control system work?
You don't have to answer all of these.
Yeah, I'm waiting for someone else.
Brittany?
Brain and nervous system.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how, like, at some level, there's all these different things. I actually don't even have that. It's kind of like,
Endocrine system too. 'Cause
what's
that's
that?
I said endocrine is like our hormonal regulation and stuff
Ooh.
like that too.
So-
Just nerves.
So that's sort of actually, so the endocrine system, it kind of works with the organs based upon what's sensed, and then like, tell me about how that system works. I'm not so good on the doctor side.
Well, for example, hormones interact with the cells in your body to get them to to either start doing something or stop doing something. So there are positive and negative feedback loops.
Mm-hmm.
So say thermoregulation is one of them. You're too hot, your body temperature goes too high,
Mm-hmm.
and your body compensates. Or if it goes too low, your body compensates.
Fantastic.
And most of that is done hormonally. It's not really done.
Fantastic. What I love about it all is, how automatic it all is. And that's like the funny thing to me about the body. Like, there's this incredibly complex layering of things going on that just works amazingly well for so much of the time. And you're not even aware of it. It just sort of happens. And at a high level, that'd be one of our goals for our buildings too. It's that same sort of thing. So, thank you for putting up with me. But I'd have a hard time designing a more perfect Marvelese. It's just, the body's just a great example. So I always like to sort of just start by thinking about that relative to buildings, because we'd have a hard time doing it better if we really. In fact, if we just learned everything we could from the body and applied that, we'd actually be in pretty good shape. That's like one of the principles hopefully we're gonna get to in this class. Okay, so just think of everything as a series of holistic organisms, and although we're individually gonna look at each individual system, the much more interesting thing, like the endocrine system, is how they all work together. Okay, and start influencing, controlling each other. Okay. The other big principles that we're going to sort of continue to harp on include stress. That sounds so much better. Performance-based design. That is the notion that at any point in the process, you always have some idea about how things are performing. Even if it's not a very good idea, you have some idea about how things are performing. And as you move through your design development, you might get a better and better idea, but you never know. You never know nothing. You always know something, and that you should work towards target. So you come in. Come on in. You work. Honors. Okay. Okay. And by that, there's estimates of almost anything. If I said, "Oh, I just bought a house in Palo Alto," how much do you think it cost? Do you have an idea?
4, 5 million.
I'm moving to your neighborhood. It could very easily be that or something like that. Okay, if I told you I bought a house in Kansas City, how much do you think it cost? No, you're actually doing very, very well. Now, what's going on there? There's something interesting. So, how are you coming up with these magically different numbers?
Similar cases, through other sales in
Yeah.
those areas.
Kind of comps, you can kind of think about it that way. But in your mind, as you're coming up with your estimate, you're doing something really cool. You're saying, hey, okay, I didn't even tell you if it's a 3-bedroom, a 4-bedroom, or an 8-bedroom house, but based on things you've heard in that area, you adjusted so that somehow my saying Palo Alto gave them a very different response than Kansas City. That's okay. Yeah, we're really good about doing that, and it's a truism for everything we're going to be designing in this class that even from the very start, as soon as I tell you anything, you have some number in mind. There's something you can tell me just based on the fact that I gave you like a single piece of data, based on comparing it to other things that are as comparable as you can figure out what it would be. You know, later on, as I give you more data, oh, well, you know, it's a 3-bedroom house that has 2,500 square feet. Okay, narrow the range down a little bit. Oh, and it has grounder countertops, but no hardwood floors, it has carpeting. So you can adjust a little bit. And the more information I give you, the finer and finer the number will be. At first, you have a number, but it probably has a huge variance. And the more information I give you, the variance is getting smaller and smaller as we kind of target in on a specific value. But even from the beginning, you know something. And that's something we're going to sort of start practicing here. So for each of these different systems, we'll start by thinking about, like, what's the target? How much energy do we want that thing to consume per square foot? What would be an acceptable range? And then based on that, you know, if it's consuming more than we want, we'll do things to sort of improve that. If it's doing A-OK, we won't put extra money into doing those things. It's just always, you know, the notion of really having its performance-based design, but also, I guess related to that, I should put it right in here more explicitly, it's really we're targeting. Yeah, because we can spend our time basically designing things in a vacuum and then waiting for the result and then acting surprised when it comes out different than what we want. Or we can start out with a target in mind and design towards the target. So that's another big principle. The final principle that we're really going to keep on stressing here is it's really the whole need for design integration and coordination. That as we go through and do these, we all wear different hats. You know, I'm kind of odd in that I graduated as a structural engineer, but I went to construction management, but I sort of like architecture, whatever. I wear many hats because I just love buildings. But each of us has our own discipline here that we're going into. And even though you may primarily think of yourself as a structural engineer or as a construction manager or as an energy or atmosphere person, you know, basically you need to coordinate and integrate with everybody. So if we understand the whole and how they fit together, we can do a better job of designing our part. And then when we need to, because sometimes we'll disagree, we can get together and kind of talk about things and say, okay, I know what you're striving for is this, I'm striving for that. We have much more basis for a negotiation because if you get into someone else's head and understand what they're trying to achieve, you know, you have a better chance of getting there. Okay, so those are the big themes of the class. In terms of how we are going to get there, let's talk about just some random logistic stuff. Okay, out on Canvas, there actually is a syllabus from last quarter. I'm adjusting it. I'm always adjusting things. You'll learn that. I just always kind of keep on, you know, tweaking things and trying different things. Well, I will attest to that. So there is a syllabus to look at. I'll adjust it based on what we're thinking on now, but let me start instead just giving you the roadmap. That's sort of where I am thinking about it right now. Yeah. We really are going to go through and look at a series of different systems. And in each of those different systems, kind of look at, just different issues. Before we actually get started talking about the systems, I often start by talking about just passive design principles because there's that whole notion, if we can fit in well with our context, if we can work with the natural forces, as opposed to trying to do it mechanically, we just have a better, a more efficient, truly more sustainable system. Yeah, if all these other systems went away, you know, basically, could we survive in the building is kind of the ultimate definition of, like, is it sustainable? And so we spend some time thinking about passive design and really what the affordances of the local system are. We'll spend some time thinking about that building envelope. So thinking about, the roof features, the wall features, the shading features, the daylighting features, some of those different things and how we articulate those and what their impact is, so that we can get some of our boundary conditions set up as we go into the more active system design. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about access and egress. There's actually a whole lot of room for talking about all sorts of things, but just the whole notion of how people circulate through a building, what sort of requirements we have for stairs, for elevators, for egress in case of safety issues, emergencies. There's just some interesting things that we have to do, and really what we'll do is we'll think about really what those requirements are and how we have to provide them, because a lot of times that sort of dictates where things ultimately end up in a building. And we'll spend some time looking at examples. Then on the structural side, we'll do a couple different things. We'll look at how we model the structural elements. People who've been in the 220A class, my numbers messed up today. yeah, have seen a little bit how to model some structural elements. We'll take that deeper, but then go through and actually get into doing the analysis. So going through and for a building that you'll be designing, go through and just calculate the actual members that would be required. Just sort of getting to doing the structural analysis using some tools that tie right into the building modeling. Okay, so we sort of took it up to the point of putting loads on things, but we never actually calculated very much. Here we'll take it a little bit further for a building. We're going to talk both for the gravity and kind of lateral loads. On the HVA side, we're going to talk about ventilation systems, how we move all the air through a building to kind of keep us just healthy because we need fresh air to survive, but also how that air is used as part of a heating and cooling strategy, or not. Because we can use air to be part of the heating and cooling strategy, or just for ventilation, or for heating and cooling, we can use a radiant system and bring in heat in what turns out to also be a much more efficient way. So moving air is what we often do, but there are better ways to do it, which are, this building's a really good example of, because we have a lot of radiant floors that are doing a lot of our heating and cooling. We'll actually sort of find too that if we do a good job with the passive design, there may actually be very little heating and cooling load. So it all works together. On the plumbing side, we'll think about hot and cold water systems. We'll think about the sanitary systems for carrying things away. We can think about whether we want to take that to sewers or if we want to divert to a gray water system and try to recycle some of the water, or even how we would design a system to collect rainwater off our roofs, something like that, and kind of incorporate that in there. So we'll do some plumbing modeling and do some system design around that. And we'll even get into the electrical systems, where in the electrical systems, we actually think about the power systems, really how all these plugs which end up on the walls, the loads are actually aggregated and put back into a system design. We'll think about lighting, not only in terms of the power requirements it's creating, but also just in terms of the light that's created, and really understanding, do we have enough lighting for the spaces, and how we can sort of distribute that efficiently. And also a little about sensory control systems. So by the time we get through the whole class, there's a whole lot of different systems kind of hanging around in here, and hopefully you're thinking about just really how a lot of the different pieces work together in a very kind of tightly integrated way. But start with the structure and kind of move on down, partly because there is sort of a hierarchy to it, partly the reason for sort of proceeding this order is, if there are trades that are dominant over others, and there tend to be, like this is the order in which they tend to dominate. And it's kind of strange. It's not to say that electrical systems are any less important than your HVAC system in the scheme of things. It's just that as things get built, it turns out the electrical system tends to have more flexibility than the HVAC system in terms of locating things, and if something has to move, it's easier to really look at the electrical than the HVAC. So we do that. We tend to like sort of do that one last. Okay. Let's go ahead and do this. In terms of how we're actually proceeding through the class, let's kind of tell you a little about how we're going to work. So there's this whole issue of 2 to 4 units. Viewing, we can be here live, record online if you have class conflict. Always feel free, just watch it online. Ultimately, we're doing a lot of project work, so when you come in and check in things and stuff like that, super. It's okay. You don't have to be here for class all the time. It's just ultimately kind of keep in touch week by week and keep things moving along on your projects. Okay, we communicate through Canvas, as well as I post things on A360 BimTopia, but Canvas is sort of the default way of doing it. But let's get to the part that really is critical for you guys, and that's the whole issue of what we actually do in this class. So I should ask you this, guys. How many of you guys are taking it for 2 units? You are? Are you taking, are you through 4? What do you?
I don't even remember. I think I put 4. Yeah.
Okay,
4,
no worries.
4. Yes. I'm still deciding.
No worries. Okay, let's talk about what the difference will be. This is kind of hard to do to make this work, but here's what I've landed right now. For each of the different systems, I'm always going to go through and create some exercise, something where for a sample building that doesn't have a lot of design work in it, but it's pretty much, if you want to just understand how to put a system into a building you've been given, here's how you do it. Okay, so you just want to sort of like learn it, just the essentials, and kind of approach it that way. Super, there'll be some exercises for you to do that. The much more interesting way to do it for people who are taking to 3 or 4 units is to actually work on an integrative design project of your own choice and kind of carry that through the entire process. And I say that in that it's really kind of cool to start with kind of an architectural design concept and then design and layer in all those different systems and ultimately think about how they impact each other. Because you start to see really firsthand how some design decisions you make up front make it much harder for you downstream, or you can start readjusting the earlier parts to go ahead and make things flow better. Doing this as an integrated design project, I think, is really a very good way to do it. Okay, so if you're here for 3 or 4 units, definitely be thinking about an integrated design project. If you're here for only 2 units, don't have to. Okay, I'd recommend it still. Okay, just depending on what you want to do, but I do think carrying it through is kind of very cool. Okay, in terms of the design project, though, let's talk about this. As usual, we're sort of changing things up, so let's talk about what you can do. For the past several quarters, we've had a project of a sustainable design center, okay, an exhibition center. The idea is we were going to build something up in the Stanford foothills, something that would really be just this exemplar of sustainable design practices. It'd be a good place where people could go and learn. The local community who's interested in sustainable design could see exhibits and examples of sustainable design principles implemented, take classes. Buses of school kids could come and sort of learn about these things. It could be a learning center. It's really the idea that it's a living lab. The building itself exhibits incredible sustainable design, but you can learn as you're kind of experiencing the building. And that's been the project we've used for the past several quarters. However, I'm not wed to that, so I'm actually going to open it up a little bit in terms of what's going on. Actually, what we're going to do here in just a minute is allow Alana, or beg Alana, to go ahead and share a little about her work, that what she did for that Sustainable Design Center, so you can see a little about sort of what some other people have done in the past. And there were a lot of examples, both on BimTopia and there's even a Google Plus group from the first quarter we did this, that have examples of work that people have done in the past. But we don't have to do that. So I am perfectly willing to and encourage you to, if you have an idea for another building that you would like to design that isn't a sustainable design center, to propose it to us. Hey, we're a small class. We can sort of do anything you really want in terms of designing something. We'll just go ahead and work with you to make sure it's sort of a rich enough example so that it has enough complexity that we actually can test all the different systems. Okay, but it could really be sort of anything you want. It doesn't have to be a sustainable design center. So in general, I would encourage, I tend to like things that are I'll call them designs for good. Things where somehow what you're designing has a positive social impact. So I like youth centers, I like community center, I like things like that, just because I like things like that. I like to think about how we can make architectural improvements to the environment that actually help communities and stuff like that. But it doesn't have to be that. It could be affordable housing, it could be just a little bit of anything. So just be thinking and keep it open to yourself about really what you would like to design, because you're going to get to know this building very intimately. Okay, and you want it to still be fun and interesting to you even by the end of the quarter. Okay, but not to worry, you get a lot of feedback and guidance to help you scope it and kind of make it appropriate, because no one wants you just it's only 10 weeks. You can only get so much accomplished and stuff like that. But we'll work with you, and because we're a small group, I think if we all do different sorts of buildings, we'll all learn a lot from each other. Oh, really? I didn't even think about that. That's kind of interesting. I guess housing is different than, it's a little bit different for all these types of buildings. You look very concerned.
Oh, no, I'm.
Okay, so let us do this. Ms. Alana, can I ask you to share?
Yep.
Okay, come on up. Let's see. Tell us about your Sustainable Design Center, just to give people a sense of what that project was all about. Come on over on this side.
Okay.
What is this? Oh, look, it's a scary Mac.
It's a Mac. I can't do this.
You can too. Okay, let's see what we got here. I'll get to that in a second. Where are you?
PowerPoint. I just did my PowerPoint.
Okay, and where are you?
Oh, Dedic a lot of presentation there.
Right there?
Yeah, that's me. Okay.
So I'll just show you, I cut some slides out that I thought were not as interesting at the moment, but later on they'll be interesting to you. So.
You're going to inspire us.
Oh, obviously.
Enthuse us. Where'd it go?
If it goes. Oh my gosh.
Oh, no, hang on. Oh, I hate this. Hang on, I gotta do this thing.
Yes, you can show it.
It's the swap, right? Ooh, I see swap displays. I gotta go find it. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? There. Oh, there it is.
Oh, there we go.
Yay. Oh.
That's a little large. Okay, hang on. I'll even get rid of that so you don't have to. There's the mouse. There's the mouse. There's the mouse. There's the camera. There's the widow. Oh. Hang on. I'll do it over here. This is my typical let's fumble around in class. Okay, now we'll go back. It's really funny.
It's funny how it takes a while. Okay. I think that's good.
Ignoring that big
Yeah.
band on the front. Okay.
Okay. So
Arrow
this is
your
my
way
building.
through fame and fortune.
So we all designed exhibition centers, so it's an exhibition center. I forgot what the size requirement was, but it was pretty large. So these are my floor plans. You can do these lovely colors and the room color coding. I had two. This is the entrance, and then it has two wings, and then like a connector. So I'll show more pictures. So, but in the like initial design phases, well, actually, this is my external wall. You can design like your wall types, and it had a reflective barrier to reflect heat, so that it would keep the HVAC and all the cooling inside. So when we're doing our conceptual designs, you can look at wind roses for your specific location. So you're designing for Palo Alto, so you can design your building and orient it based on the winds. And also you can do solar studies. So that was my conceptual building shape, and I oriented it to, oh no, I just did the solar study to see where I should put the solar panels. So this was the best location for solar panels, so that's how I decided where to put them. So that's how I oriented my building, so that it would take advantage of summer winds, and they would go in and then through the building and then out, but then during the winter they wouldn't go through the building. And then also solar maximum temperature, so that's solar panels there. They're supposed to cover the whole thing, but I decided that was kind of unfeasible for the roof, for the structural system. And you can also do daylighting. That's based on the windows, it determines how much light is going to get into the room. So some of the rooms that are red are just like bathrooms and storage rooms, so I decided that wasn't a big problem, but like it can tell you when there's enough light in certain rooms and not, based on different codes.
Got it. And then we can adjust our envelope as necessary to either add or remove shading features or additional windows to kind of level that out and make it a good target level for what would be comfortable to work in.
So you can play around with your windows with the size and the types and shades. So that's the overall building. I'll quickly go over the features, but I'll go over them in detail. There's like a green roof here, pervious pavement. It's covered in copper because I thought it looked nice. That has nothing to do with the actual building. There's a trom wall there, and then that's the courtyard. There's light shelves. That's the connector piece. And so there's the structural system. I did it in steel. You can choose what type of system you want to do. You could do concrete, you could do wood frame. I decided to use steel. There's debate over which is more sustainable, concrete or steel.
That continues to be a raging
Yeah.
debate, so.
And I did a full HVAC system on one wing of the building, so you can see the ductwork and the diffusers, intake, outtake. There's the HVAC system. So it's kind of fun to design it because you have to really think about where you're going to put your mechanical room and like connect them through the floors. I thought that was extremely challenging because my mind doesn't really work in an HVAC sense. So I gained a lot of appreciation for how the building actually connects itself through different floors. And so there's more detail of the system. And plumbing system, I found plumbing system was challenging. So I did this little portion. It has a gray water system. That's the purple pipe. And yeah, connecting all the things. It's a lot of fun to connect them.
It's a lot of fighting with Revit, but it's also fun when it finally works.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but it's interesting how it works.
It's satisfying when you finally beat it.
Exactly. And so here's my Tron wall. The idea is that like air comes inside and then it heats up out here and then it comes out through the top. So the glass keeps it warm on it. It's like a greenhouse effect kind of. And that's facing the solar maximum from the south so that it captures in the winter, it captures the sun's heat. There's it from the inside. And I have rainwater harvesting. So the idea is that water flows from the roof and then falls into the rain garden and then gets filtered out through the rain garden. So it's not running down the asphalt streets. And there's a green roof, pervious pavement, same concept as the rain garden. And I put light shelves. These were fun to make, but they bounce light so that it gets into the middle of the building. The reason that I did the two long, skinny buildings was to let daylight come through the whole building. I think there's like 60 feet is the max, but I think might be like 30 feet wide or something. So the light shelves help bounce it. And then also the slanted roof helps bounce it too, so that the light bounces all around. And also natural ventilation was the idea of facing it towards the summer wind, so you can open those windows up at the top and let the breeze flow through. I had a little outdoor classroom in the back, connects people with nature. Solar panels and skylights, also for the light reasons. And that's the front entrance, the front lobby. I wanted to keep it open but also covered so that people can like walk and it doesn't let in too much light. That's the exterior. Copper. It's the interior courtyard. You can see the light shelves again. I really wanted an open concept, but keeping the windows to the outside would be like too warm. You would have to overcompensate too much. So I wanted to keep like a shaded courtyard in the inside to give decent light, but still keep the building cool. And there's the lobby view. That's the view into the courtyard. It's another interior shot. You can see the ductwork again up on the ceiling. Another interior shot. That one's not very interesting. And that's the overall building. So, as you can tell, I like renderings. So if you need any help with renderings, I love doing them. So.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no problem.
Hopefully that'll inspire you to think about this project's kind of an amazing one because on the one hand it's really open-ended. I'll warn you about that. You could really spend all quarter just working on this. You could spend all year working on something like this. But you could choose a piece and really kind of, and we'll give you a lot of guidance about just focusing your energy on specific pieces. It's what I think sort of an incredibly satisfying experience to really work through just all the details and really get to know that building. It's really much more intimately than almost any other class you'll get here. It's just that you learn about so many things in an abstract sense, and you learn all the equations, and you sort of learn how all these little pieces individually work, but there's really very few chances to put them all together into a whole building. So it's kind of fun just to do that and really have it all under your control to do something like that. So yeah, just go ahead and take a look at, I should post your presentation. So I can tell you where you'll find some other examples too, because there's really a lot of good examples there. If you go out to, out in Google land, let's go to BimTopia, which is a site where we host a lot of stuff from our different classes. You'll actually find, sort of past videos from the class, stuff like that. But the important thing, and I think what you want to see more than anything, is this notion of what's called student design journals. And what those are just people logging about their experience of designing this building from the beginning of the quarter through the end of the quarter. And you'll see sort of where they started with their roughest design ideas of what the building could be like, through their thinking about each individual system, ultimately tying into like what the final building is. And you'll find some really just outstanding examples out there. Let's see if I go to here. I have actually your log from the old wintertime one there. But if I go, here's Priscilla, let me pop on in. You'll see just all this information. This is from the final presentations. Well, here's Dominique's. She's in the other class right now. That's off a lobby. But, you know, it's just really sort of incredible the level of design that was going on. Because, you know, on the one hand, it's sort of a, you know, you're designing an architectural design to meet a program, but then like the really full understanding of how all the systems are going to work together. It's really just exceptional how like they all come together. And you look at some of these renderings, you look at some of these views, like those are very plausible spaces. It's sort of funny, they remind me of some of the spaces from like the PVO class or something like that. It's because it's, in some ways, the program's somewhat similar. So you'll just find lots of examples of what people are thinking about structurally. Actually, what we're trying to do with the class is really, the Alpha Lobby had this really nice example. It's those mystery arrows that show the ventilation going up through. What our intention is in this class is to show you with the analysis tools how you can show that those either do happen or don't happen. Because it's really, so a lot of arrows floating around in diagrams about how daylighting bounces and stuff like that. And there's really only one way to know. We can model it, we can test it, we can simulate it, and sort of see how it's going. There's just some really nice examples. Another really good nice one to look at is Antonio's. He came up with a strategy of a whole underground building. So it's all underground except for this big court or central courtyard there and the kind of the front entry. There's some advantages to going underground. But he was inspired by a building he had seen, I think it was in Mexico, but just came up with this whole notion of kind of, again, this sort of interior courtyard with the skin to kind of let the light in but still sort of filter it a little bit, with then things working around the outsides. So, yeah, it's just a project you can have a lot of fun with. And that's what I encourage you for all this, as you think about this whole class. Think about really something you'd really love doing. You know, what's that one building you've never had the chance to do in any other class, just something that's burning to come out of you and your design creativity. And this is the chance where you're in a safe environment, there's nothing but love around here and help to help you realize that building. And we'll get through it together. So that's really what the class is about, is just really learning how to do those things and applying them. You'll see just lots of examples. Many people have survived successfully. So there's just a lot of stuff out there. Okay, beauty. Let us do this. Let us take a ever so brief break. And when you come on back, we're actually going to dive on into a couple examples of how you could actually get started with something like this. So relative to the project, the big thing to think about as we go through, I have the briefing for the Sustainable Design Center out on Canvas, so you can kind of read the briefing that we've given people in the past. If you want to think about another building that you'd rather do instead, no worries, just read the briefing and you'll sort of get a sense of what the initial design prompt was. And then when we get together, we can talk about the building you want to do, and we'll help kind of figure out some boundary conditions to the design problem so that we can write a program and a brief for whatever your building is too, to help guide us through it. But let's do this. Take a break now if you can. Come back in about 5 minutes, something like that. And when you do, we will actually show you a little about some of the tools we're going to be using and how they all work together, just to get you thinking ahead.